of all, welcome. We're very excited to have you here. Some details. I want to highlight some elements in your conference brochure. The first one is that there's a place for not only a schedule of class and some biographies, but also some maps, list of participants, a place to take notes. And your first note, get out your pen, is that we do have a hashtag. Those of you who are tweeters can go ahead and tweet out some highlights for the conference. It's hashtag WLAConf18. My name is Usha Rodriguez, and I should have started out with that, but I'm just so excited to get to everything. And also, at the end of the brochure is an evaluation, a feedback form. And you'll see that there's a place for you to evaluate sessions as they occur. I know some of you will be leaving toward the end of the conference. Please just, any session that you want to give us some feedback on, and then overall, go ahead and write down your thoughts, because as many of you know, and as the brochure describes, this is part of an ongoing initiative, and next year it will be hosted by Virginia. So there's an ongoing conversation about, that's right, that's right. And there'll be boxes for you to turn in those evaluation forms around throughout the conference. Or you could turn them into Amanda Shaw, the wonderful Amanda Shaw, who you've had many emails from. She's a graduate of our law school, and she is fantastic. We could not have put this on without her. Her contact information and my contact information, both in the brochure, and you can really go to her, as I know many of you have been, with any questions that you have. So a few more logistics. There are bathrooms located outside to the left and also up the stairs and straight ahead. The next session will be here, but when it's over, after this next session, we're going to leave the building. You'll exit the building, turn right, and go to the next building, which is Dean Rusk Hall. There'll be signage, there'll be students that will help guide you there. That's where we're going. Next, I want to highlight that there were a few changes in the schedule, and I want to explain a little bit about why. We had some cancellations, but I also want to pause and recognize someone who some of you might have met at the Georgia Law Women's Reception, which we had at AALS. There were two men in the room. One was Bo Rutledge, and the other was a young business law colleague, Jonathan Rohr, who I had never met, and that was the first time I met him. He's at Tennessee, and he was, I feel like from what I know of Jonathan, the fact that he was comfortable being the only man, a young professor in that room, talking to a bunch of women who are interested in talking about women's issues was really, really wonderful. Really said a lot about him. And unfortunately, he passed away very unexpectedly last Friday. In the memorial service, he was a professor at Tennessee, will be tomorrow. We had many Tennessee colleagues who were here and very engaged in the conference. Tennessee is one of the members of our initiative. And so we juggled the schedule because, among the participants is his dean. And I really honestly can't think of a harder, more challenging experience than losing a young, vibrant colleague so suddenly. So we really thank you all for understanding about that juggling of the schedule, and thank the Tennessee women for being here. So reflecting upon Jonathan and I know that we're all very busy in our day-to-day lives doing important things. It's unfortunately, as we get older, it seems like there are these times that make us take a step back and think about what really matters. I know that all of you have very busy lives with very important things that you do day to day in your jobs, and this summer is not a time for slowing down. I really want to thank you for taking the time out of that to come here for 2 days of reflection, engagement, conversation, empowerment. I think it's really important, and I'm grateful to each of you for sharing that time with us here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Bo Rutledge, who has been, he's a renowned international arbitration scholar and a great teacher, and I had the joy of stepping into his shoes as research dean and watching him become dean of this law school. I feel like we both really grew into our roles, and I learned a ton from him. The majority of his associate deans have always been women. He's been extraordinarily supportive of me and of women throughout the law school and the profession, and he certainly has been a tireless supporter of this initiative. I'm extremely grateful to him for his support, both personally and professionally, and thank him so much.
Thank you, Usha. And welcome to the University of Georgia Law School. I feel like middle age is setting in, because as I was listening to your remarks, Usha, for a moment when you said that we grew into our roles, for a moment I thought you said we ruined our roles. At least in my case, there may be a little bit of truth to both. Where to begin? I'd like to invite you all back to a couple of years ago, where Usha and Lori Ringhand, who's over in the corner, and Diane Amon, who's next to her, and Eric Hashimoto. If anyone from Georgetown is here, I have something to speak with you about. We're in a room, and we were reflecting on the fact that it was a point of pride for us that all 4 associate deans of the law school were women. And what that bespoke about the values of our institution, and what we could do for the profession more broadly. And from that was born an initiative that we, I really should say they, dubbed Georgia Will, which stood for Georgia Women in Law League. That was a year-long undertaking that involved lectures, programs, celebrations, many of which were in honor of our first female graduate, Edith House. The timing of the Georgia Will Initiative was that it coincided with the 100th year in which women were permitted to practice in the state of Georgia. And in 1925, Edith House not only was our first female graduate, she was co-valedictorian of her class. She went on to a 3-decades-long career as a federal prosecutor in Florida, and ultimately became the first female U.S. attorney in Florida at a time when there were relatively few in that position in the profession. And as I thought about the span of that history, from House's time here in the 20s to those meetings that those 4 associate deans were having, to this past March where Usha and a woman named Gracie Shepard, who's the vice president, now graduate of our Women's Law Student Association, were sitting in this room interviewing another female leader from this law school, Sally Quillian Yates, at a lecture honoring Edith House. It's a reminder of the fact that what brought us here is the sum total of the efforts of those who came before us. And so in some ways, what makes me most happy is where Usha began, to welcome you to the first of what we know unequivocally, because of the commitment of our colleagues at the University of Virginia, will be a continuing commitment to that effort, and one that maybe began with Georgia Will, but has a national arc as well. At a time when women are substantially underrepresented at the highest levels of academic leadership, the programs of the next 2 days offer the opportunity for those committed to facilitating change. In recognizing that purpose to this conference and future conferences, there are a few people whom I'd like to take a moment to thank. One is Rebecca White. Rebecca was the first female dean of this law school. She led this institution for over 10 years, which for those of you who've been in that job know how hard an undertaking that was. One might say you had the first part of the movie, and then 2008 came, and then you had the sequel. The sequel is in some ways a lot darker than the first part of the movie. Many of us are here because of her leadership and all of us who serve here build on the legacy that she gave us. The second is Kelly Teskey. Kelly, you have been committed to this cause for a long period of time as dean and now as chair of the Law School Admissions Council, and I want to take a special note to thank you and the LSAC for your commitment to provide scholarships for some of the attendees who otherwise couldn't be here today, because what that sets in motion, the fruits of that will be felt for years to come. The third are two provosts, or I should say provost turned president and interim provost, Pam Winton and Libby Morris. For those of you who met Pam, she was amazing. To say she was inspired and Stephanie Lindquist would be an understatement. She spoke truth to power. She wasn't afraid to take on settled conventions. I think there was nothing that sort of caused her to want to change faster than have to deal with the tyranny of the mediocre. And what she did in terms of boosting the research enterprise at the school, the university I should say, launching our Women's Leadership Initiative, launching our Women's Staff Leadership Initiative, because lest that be forgotten, the administrators as well as the faculty are an instrumental part of the academic enterprise. And the other is Libby Morris, whom you'll hear from tomorrow. Libby will be doing her second stint as provost to the university, stepping in at a time as Pam goes on to become president of another university. And her selfless willingness to serve this institution makes it a better place. The last person I want to thank is Usha. And this is hard because I think of Usha as a friend at many levels. She's the friend with whom you have a glass of wine on the porch and talk about raising kids. But she's also a friend in the sense that Hari and Laura and Kelly and Stephanie and Melanie will understand. For those of you who have been deans, you know this, and for those of you who will become deans, and I count Usha among them very soon, this is a lonely job. It is hard because you are confronted with choices that the most creative law school hypothetical has no beat on. And yet, you need to find a place in those moments of loneliness where you can let down and sort of think through how to move your institution forward as best you can with the judgments that you need to make. And more than anyone else in this building, Usha's been that for me. So to see you bringing this conference to fruition, building on the shoulders of those who came before you, I just want to thank you. I'm very excited for what the future holds. I sometimes feel like the job as a dean is to interrupt happy conversation and then turn things over to the faculty. And so with that, I'll invite my colleague Sonia West and her fellow panelists to the first program.